Good morning, and welcome to Chapel Chat. I'm Pastor Kevin Little, and this is the chapel at Rantoul First United Methodist Church. I was having a conversation with someone recently about the awful things that people can say to someone who is grieving. And I decided we should chat about that a little bit today. So, first of all, grief is a complicated thing. It can be really hard for some, and maybe not appear to be so for others. We can grieve for various things also. It's pretty widely recognized that a majority of people have been grieving in various ways for the past 2 years because of the impact of COVID on our world. Now, they might be grieving the loss of a job, the loss of normalcy, the loss of school experiences that may have been canceled, or the deeper losses of loved ones. All of these things are legitimate reasons to grieve, and they are affecting many of us in different ways. Talking to someone who is grieving can feel awkward if we've never been in that position. Or, if you're just generally socially awkward like I am, it always feels awkward. But there are some things that people should just avoid saying to someone who is grieving, especially if it's a personal loss. First, don't ask questions about underlying reasons. Don't ask, did they smoke? Were they overweight? These aren't helpful, and they actually are more about either satisfying your own curiosity about the reason for their loss or making sure that you aren't at risk of the same thing. It's gossip, and it has no place in a conversation about grief unless the person who is dealing with the loss brings it up. Don't say, at least they didn't suffer. What do you know about it? Were you there? Are you 100% confident in that statement? Or this one, at least their suffering is over. How does that help me with my suffering now? That doesn't take away the loss that I'll feel for the rest of my life. This one's always good. God has a plan. Really? How does that comfort at all? Does that make this person any less missed? Or they are in a better place. Okay, sure, I believe that. But I'm stuck here without that person now. I have to get up every day knowing I won't see that person anymore. How does it help to know that they are in a better place when I'm stuck here? When I have to go to all of these places that I've been with that person, except they won't be there with me. This one's just a classic. God never gives us more than we can handle. Where does that come from? Are you reading the same Bible that I do? There's nothing in Scripture that says this, and it's a terribly unhelpful thing to say. Or just telling somebody, isn't it time to move on? Really? When this happens to you, I'll start my timer and say the same thing to you at this point, and we'll see how that goes. Grief can take as long as it takes. It might be shorter for some or longer. It might come and go. There isn't a rule. In the book of Job, Job loses everything, property, livelihood, and children. His 3 friends hear about it and decide to pay him a visit to see how he's doing. Job chapter 2, verses 11 through 13 says, Now when Job's 3 friends, Eliphaz the Temanite, Bildad the Shuhite, and Zophar the Naamathite, heard about all this adversity that had happened to him, each of them came from his home. They met together to go and sympathize with him and comfort him. When they looked from a distance, they could barely recognize him. They wept aloud, and each man tore his robe and threw dust into the air and on his head. Then they sat on the ground with him 7 days and nights, but no one spoke a word to him because they saw that his suffering was very intense. They sat with him in silence for 7 days. That's how you help someone who is grieving. Just by being with them and keeping your mouth shut. You listen when they talk. Don't argue. Don't offer advice. No pearls of wisdom. Just be there with them. When my dad died, one of my pastor friends from school reached out, and that was what she said to me. She was sitting with me in my grief. We couldn't actually do that together because of COVID, but I know that she would have been here to do so if we could. And it meant the world to me because I knew she meant it and it was needed. Often, all someone who is grieving needs is to know that you are there in support. None of the words are actually necessary, and it's been my experience that being quiet is often the best idea. So the next time you are talking to someone who is grieving, just remember that the best thing that you can say is nothing at all. Just be there to support them no matter how long it takes. Thanks for joining me for another Chapel Chat. I'll see you here again next week. Have a good week.